I'm an alcoholic. My name's Randy. This leather-bound book, besides my personal Bible, is not for sale. It's probably the most expensive piece of literature I've ever acquired in my life. I think all of you can relate. Josh, thanks for having me come down and speak to the Primary Purpose Group. It's always an honor to do something for AA, and I enjoy speaking. Haven't done it in a while, so if I get nervous or a little rusty, please forgive me. But it's one of those things that nobody wants to do, but we all need to do. We need to share our stories with other folks so they can see that this program works one person, one day at a time. Now, I'm going to tell some funny stories, but I'll get out of the way. Do we have any closet peers in here? Come on, guys. All right, there you go. All right, so I'm in a group of where I need to be. If we got closet peers or hamper peers, then I'm where I need to be. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way. I do have a sobriety date. It's March the 8th, 2017. I have a home group. It's the New South group. We meet at West Memorial Church at the corner of Westchester and East Chestnut Street in High Point. Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30. Mondays is a discussion meeting. Thursdays is an open speaker meeting. Love to have you all come. We got good AA in High Point. The New South group is the oldest group in High Point, over 60 years now. I do believe in service work. I am our group's treasurer, or whatever that means. If y'all want to ride home in my new truck out there, I'll give you a ride. No, it's an honor to be asked to do something for AA. And I do some other volunteer work. I do have a sponsor. I've been with my sponsor, John, now for about 4 years. I had 2 previous sponsors, and I'll tell you about those guys. And we got a really long sponsorship tree. My grand sponsor is 86 years old, and I still talk to him every week. Actually, I probably see him more often than I do my own sponsor, and that's not my fault or my sponsor's fault. That's just we live in different cities, and it's tough sometimes. So my job tonight is to tell you in a general way what I was like, what changed, and what it's like today. When you get to AA, we all have a story of how we got here and why we're here. And I believe truly that I got here when I was supposed to get here. Not a day too soon and not a day too late. But my story hasn't changed in AA, but the way I tell my story and what I want to emphasize in my story, and I hope that somebody could relate to, has changed. I was born in Concord, North Carolina, and lived there till I was 4. Then my parents were transferred to High Point, where I currently live. I've been there since 1975. Shortly after we arrived in High Point, my little brother was born. That's resentment number 1. I'll get him out of the way. He's a good guy. He's not one of us. He is probably an untreated lunatic, and he married a doubly untreated lunatic. And after I got sober, I figured out that myself, my wife, and my children cannot live in chaos. So we have a very double arm length relationship with my brother and his family. Not because I don't love my brother, but it's because I choose not to live in chaos today. Coming through growing up, I can tell you I was just like every one of you. I didn't fit in, but I was a heck of a good chameleon. I had good guy friends. I had bad guy friends. I could mix in over here and stay just out of trouble, and I could be Mr. Goody Two-Shoes on the other side and have decent grades and be complimented by the nice ladies at church on Sunday. So I knew what it was like. I had a fantastic upbringing. There is no documented alcoholism in my family, but I had a grandfather that drank a lot, and I have 2 adult cousins in the program currently, and I have the 3rd one on the watch list. So maybe there is some alcoholism somewhere along the way. I went to church, and religion was important. We were there on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evening, and coming through in youth group. I had a key to the church. Believe it or not, it's the same church where they hold AA meetings, but they were going on a whole lot longer than I knew about, and I should have been there sooner, but I got here when I got here. We all have drunk stories, but what I want to tell you about what's changed in my life is what God is doing for me that I could not do for myself. And the way that looks is, I can tell you about my first drink. I remember it was like it was yesterday. I was 12 years old. I was in a bar in a little town called Chappeau, which is on the Ottawa River in Canada. I was with my dad and my grandfather on a fishing trip. And we went into this bar, restaurant, and everything. The name of the bar was Freddy's. And Freddy's, if you could picture this, beautiful glass back here with Freddy etched in the glass, and it had every kind of liquor bottle you could ever imagine. It was like a fantastic Christmas tree. I was 12 years old, walked up to the bar, and asked the girl for a drink. She said, "What do you want?" I said, "Sprite." And she said, "No, if you can see over the bar and you have money, you can drink here." I said, "Okay." And they handed me a LeBlat's 50. Well, I drank that, and I'd never had anything to drink before, and it tasted pretty bad. But I do remember it. As the evening went on, we had dinner, and there was a band playing. And I drank more and more that night, and I remember I was the pinball wizard. I played the drums in the band. I threw darts, and I asked the bartender to dance, and she said yes. She took my hand, walked all the way down the bar, jumped off. She was a midget. So I danced with the midget at the end of the night. How good is that? So where God started working in my life and doing things for me that I couldn't do for myself, I went to a high school party at the age of 15. And I can tell you I was 15 years old because I had my old Velcro OP wallet. Y'all remember those? Anybody? Yeah, old Velcro and OP on the side of it. I had $2 in there and my learner's permit because I was going to leave that party and walk up to the fast fair and get 2 cans of Copenhagen. They were 89 cents back then. That tells you how old I am. I didn't make it that far. This party was going on Kensington Road, which is a pretty common thoroughfare in the High Point. Emery Wood Baptist Church sits up here. Forest Hills Presbyterian sits here. And I was kind of right in between the two. Now, there's been a AA meeting at Emery Wood Baptist for about 30 plus years. And there's been one at Forest Hills Presbyterian for about 30 plus years. And Randy got ripped, roaring drunk, and passed out in the road. High Point's Finest took me home. My parents were out of town in California at a business conference, and my grandmother was there. The police officer got me in the house, did not arrest me. My grandmother, I remember her asking me, "What did you drink? What did you drink?" I have no idea what I drank. But I can tell you in my drinking career, I didn't like scotch, so I got a pretty good feeling it was scotch. My grandmother never ratted me out to my parents of what happened that night. My grandmother died 5 years ago. I was able to make amends with her in the process of being sober. I paid her back financially what she considered to be a gift, and I did not see it as a gift. I saw it as money she handed me after I graduated from college. I paid all that back, and she never ratted me out to my parents about what happened. Good, bad, I don't know. Maybe if she'd have told them what happened, I don't know, but I got to believe I love my parents. They're wonderful, but they're really good enablers sometimes too, as we get going through this. So right there on a major thoroughfare between two churches where there's AA meetings going on, I get rip-roaring drunk and pass out in the street. I should have been killed, run over by a car. It's in a dark spot where it was. I go by there 3 or 4 times a week, depending on where I'm going in the city of High Point. And that memory is for real, and I remember it. The next thing that happened to me was in college. I spent a lot of time in high school and in college out at Ocean Isle Beach. Anybody ever been to Ocean Isle? There's some pretty good bars down there. Y'all probably know them all, just like I did. But there was one in particular on the 2nd Street called, when I was in the heyday, it was called the Charter Boat. It changed names about every year, but I drank there for 1 year underage completely. And when I was at Ocean Isle, I had 3 jobs. I worked on a charter boat, fishing, I painted, and I mowed grass. And that's pretty good ways to get cash money as a college kid. I had another friend that worked in an audiovisual store, and the other guy worked in a grocery store. And every Thursday, we'd pull our money, we'd go to the liquor store and buy a half gallon of tequila and put it in my freezer at my house. about 10, 11 o'clock at night, we'd get that out, start sipping that, and we'd get on our bicycles and go to parties and bars all over the island. And I tell this story because, again, it's God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Coming home one night, I was turning on my street on my bicycle, and our street there's 50 houses on either side of the street, and it's bordered up behind the homes by deep water canals where people park their boats, and big boats in some cases. I turned that corner, I slid on the gravel, and it hit a split rail fence. And I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning with road rash and all, cotton mouth laying there, and the lady's sprinkler system was on in the yard, and that's what woke me up. But I looked at it, now knowing, had that fence not been there, I would have gone in that canal, and I would have drowned. That's how drunk I was. God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. In that whole process, life was good. Things were good. I had not had any trouble yet. I had no infractions with really other people or relationships. I was doing well in college, doing real well actually. And I was approaching my senior year. I was dating Catherine, who I'm married to. We just celebrated 30 years of marriage. Thank God for this program. I have a very loving and forgiving wife who is a sister of the Black Belt group that meets across the hall, some refer to as Al-Anon. I like to put a little AA voodoo on her, and she puts a little Al-Anon karate on me sometimes. But we have our own programs, and it works out pretty well. We were dating, and we were engaged to be married. I had graduated. She was still in school, and I was traveling. I got a job as a traveling salesman, and man, what an open window. As long as you're putting numbers on the board, nobody's asking questions, because this is before cell phones. I had an MCI calling card, and I knew where every payphone in my territory was. It was usually near a bathroom. And I could start drinking at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and usually nobody wanted to see you before 9 o'clock in the morning. So there was a great time, out of town, didn't have to worry about it. Most cheap hotels I stayed in had a flea bag bar or restaurant right there, like those old Holiday Inn bars, with that yellow-orange kind of seedy glass and one of those plants that grows all along it, and they had a bar around there, and you stuck to the floor every time you went in there, and they had like orange upholstery on the chairs. Those were the kind of places I was hanging out. But I never got in trouble on the road, believe it or not. And like I said, before we had cell phones, I'd call my wife and tell her what town I was in and what hotel I was in and how many nights I was staying. And there wasn't the communication, and thank goodness there weren't video cameras and these things on our phones. I'd be in jail. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but I could be in jail. So what happened? What changed? I look now back at it, and I had this tremendous yet list of all the things that had not happened to me yet. But they were getting ready to. My world was getting smaller and smaller. My drink start time was earlier in the day. My pass out time was later in the evening. I was totally isolating myself other than going to work. I had dropped out of about everything socially that I did, whether it was at church or in the community. I had stopped it all. I built, in my mind, I built a beautiful 16 by 30 concrete prison in my backyard. I sat out there by myself and got hammered every night. I fell into this incredible hole of impending doom. I came up with things in my mind that were going to happen to me and people that I loved that I know today could have never, ever happened. But those were the things that was fueled by my alcoholism. And the more I drank, the bigger this impending doom got, to where I felt like I was walking around with my head down all the time, and I had no hope. But I had a beautiful wife. I had 2 fantastic kids. And I just could not get out of that, wanting to change the way that I felt every day. And it got earlier and earlier. So by the end of my drinking career, I never found the day drink. I'm sorry, but I didn't do it. I did on the weekends, most weekends, but I started drinking probably at the end around 3:30 in the afternoon. And I will tell you a funny story about that. Anybody familiar with the home furnishings market in High Point? Big market. Okay, I work in the furniture industry, in the textile business. And during the market, they have free bars, different places in the afternoon. Well, I would get the first thing when market opened, I'd get the schedule of events in that calendar, and I knew where all the free bars were. And I knew which ones that this group of customers went to on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I knew Monday and Wednesday over there where to go, so that I didn't get seen by the same people, right? That's a good alcoholic. And I'd move around, but I knew where the free booze was. I didn't care what they were serving. I just wanted to get drunk, and that's exactly what I did. Things got worse and worse and worse. It's that progressive disease, but at that point I'm probably at about mid-shoulder. And what changed? Two things happened at that point in my life. I knew that I couldn't go on any longer, and I did have that fleeting thought of suicide, or what it would be like, or why am I doing this? Is a really painful way to live, and I'm not enjoying this. And I sat down with my dad, and I said, Dad, I think I have a drinking problem. And he looked at me like, I never would have thought that. Like I said, parents sometimes are really good enablers. And we talked for a little while, and he said, I don't have any ideas, but let's talk in the morning, and we'll come up with something to do. And I thought, well, okay, we'll see. I went home, got frosted, and called him the next morning, and he said, I got an idea. He said, do you remember Tom? And I said, yeah, I know Tom. He said, Tom and Donna and your mom and I went out to dinner on Monday, and I didn't know it, but Tom just told me that he doesn't drink, and he's been sober for 26 years. He said, let me call Tom and see what Tom has to say. Okay. In the meantime, I called my medical doctor, who is a personal friend of mine, and I called him up, and I said, Richard, I think I got a drinking problem. He said, uh-oh. And I said, well, I was calling to see if you had any advice. He said, yeah, I got some advice for you. And Richard's pretty laid back, okay, and he's a little guy. And I thought, here it comes. He's going to tell me to go out to North High Point by the airport for a 3-day weekend. They're going to teach me how to drink and what to do and not to do. That's where I was in my brain at this point. He goes, now I'm going to tell you what to do. He says, you need to go to AA. You need to get a sponsor, do what they say, listen to them. If you've been drinking, they'll know it. Because if you don't, you're going to lose your job, your house, your wife, your kids, and you're going to die. And by the way, there's a meeting Thursday night at the church. You know where it is. And hung up on me. He was right. I found that meeting that Thursday night, and I wandered in there because I was on a big winning streak and just wanted to see, what's this AA thing? I'm going to check it out. No, it wasn't like that. But before I got there, I called Tom, and I talked to Tom. And Tom, I grew up with Tom's 3 sons. I didn't know Tom didn't drink. I didn't know Tom was in this program. Tom had just celebrated 26 years of sobriety. And it was like he had this book in front of him. And he opened it up, and he 12-stepped me like I was watching a movie. I can still remember it was like yesterday. And what he described, where he was, kind of my age, when he stopped drinking, was exactly what was happening to me, or about to happen to me. So I went into that, and he said, before you go in, I want to give you one last piece of advice. You're probably going to see some people in there that you know. And that was a funny experience. I went into my church on a Thursday night to this AA meeting, and I did like every good newcomer. I waited till about 7:57. I darted in there, and I sat down. And just as I sit down, my friend Bobby goes, hey, Randy, how you doing? Great to meet you. Good to see you here. I thought, oh, shoot, Bobby, how you doing? And then another guy I know from another thing in town was in there, Butch. And then this other guy was in there, and I grew up with his kids. Anyway, I was like, yeah, there are some people I know. Well, then this guy, David J., comes out to speak. I thought, well, there's something to this. I know Bobby, and I know Tom, and I know Butch, and David. David and I were involved in another group doing volunteer work in the city of High Point. I didn't know he was an alcoholic, and he didn't know why I was there. I told the guy who was sitting next to me, Bobby, I was here to hear David. Anyway, David got up and David told his story. It wasn't my story, but I could absolutely relate to the, as it's referred to in the book, the complete demoralization of myself. I was that beat down, I didn't want any more. Now, I probably didn't start out the right way in AA because it took me a while to get a sponsor. And that's a whole funny story in itself because I went sponsor shopping. Anybody ever gone sponsor shopping? You know, you got to find the right guy, the right thing, the right everything. Well, I was sponsor shopping, and I also was afraid to ask anybody to be my sponsor because I kind of thought that was like asking a dude to go out on a date. You know, I don't really want to get so close to somebody. Of course, you know, I'd never had a real relationship other than with my wife in my entire life with another human being that amounted to more than socially, right? I wasn't gonna get a sponsor, but two old timers kind of backed me into the corner at Emerywood Baptist Church on a Friday night, and this guy Scott appeared. Scott was great. I'd known Scott for about 15 years. We sat 3 pews apart in church. I had no idea he was an alcoholic. He didn't know I had a problem either. And we started the road through the 12 steps using this book right here. We met every Monday night before our Monday night meeting, and we met sometimes on Thursdays, at least every other week on Thursdays. And we went through this book page by page. And the solution began to appear to me. Things got better like they do for all of us. It didn't happen fast, but I wasn't walking around with my head down. My kids weren't scared of me. My wife didn't know when the other shoe was going to fall down or I was going to break something in the house. But, you know, I did what y'all told me to do. And that's when things got better. So God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I'll back up to that Ocean Isle place. I was in my mom's minivan, nice sexy black Honda minivan, and I was off the island in a place I never should have ever been. I left where I was, and I turned left on Highway 130 on a Saturday night. Got about a quarter mile up the road, and there is the old DWI Highway Patrol checkpoint with the bus and everything. And I thought, this is not going to end well. This is how it's going to happen right here in my mom's minivan. I'm going to jail. I was about the second car coming up. Had my license out, hoping this was going to be quick and nothing was going to happen. And about the time I start to roll forward, the sky lets loose with heavy rain, a lightning bolt's flashing, and the guy waved everybody through the line. Honest to God truth. Did not go to jail, but that's how it was going to go down. Again, God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. So that's where I get to today and what it's like for Randy today, staying sober and living sober. I dumb this down. I follow the 12 steps, and I follow the 12 traditions, and I work with the guys that I sponsor. We start in the book. I'm not a chaser. A man wants to drink, a man's going to drink. I give him everything that was freely given to me. I give it back 100% or more. But what Randy does is I follow what I call the 5 fingers of AA. And if you've heard this before, great. A lot of what I say I heard from somebody else, but I hadn't heard this one. But this is what works for me on a daily basis. I pray when I wake up. I read something spiritual. I go to a meeting when I can. I try and help somebody else, and I pray at the end of the day. That's a pretty good way for this alcoholic to live. But I was telling a good friend of mine I was playing golf with, he said, hell, I ought to start trying. That's a pretty good way for anybody to live. What that looks like. Well, my prayers when I wake up are a lot of different things. They used to be, oh God, don't let me wake up, or oh God, my head hurts, or oh God, I think I'm going to throw up, or oh God, I got 18 different things to go, and the world's bigger than I am, and I can't even get out of this bed because I'm paralyzed. Anybody identify with that? I sure can. Today it's like, God, thanks for this day. Thanks for letting me be an alcoholic. Keep me sober. And I go read. I have a pretty strict routine that I follow every day. I read 24 hours a day. I read the daily reflection. I have my own Bible study that I do every day. Those are the 3 things that I do. If that means I have to be at the airport at 5:30, I start reading about 4. I think in my sobriety, I've read after 8 o'clock only because there was an emergency or something in the house. Even when my mother was in the hospital dying, before I picked my dad up, I was doing my stuff, and I'm sober today. And that's what works for this alcoholic. I'm not saying it's going to work for you, but pray when you get up. Read something spiritual. Go to a meeting. Help somebody else and pray at the end of the day. That's what's working for Randy. Now, the other great thing is that in this program and in sobriety, blessings roll out all the time. My home group, we like to talk about them as God shots. The Al-Anon folks, they call them God winks. They're a little softer than we are. But my wife and I have been very blessed in a lot of ways, and these God shots keep showing up. And one of the things that I had with my second sponsor, sponsorship's a funny thing. My first sponsor, Scott, was great. And I had two fantastic sponsee brothers, Kevin and Jason. Kevin was about 6 years sober. Jason was about 3 years sober. And then there was new guy, Randy, come along. Scott was getting ready to celebrate 10 years. Or in my home group, Roy would say, that's 9 years. You're not getting ready. You're 9 years. I went through all the steps, got through step 4 and 5, and 90 days later, Scott comes to us and says he's moving to Kentucky. My two sponsee brothers said, what the hell did you tell him? Now, nobody has that much power, but the coincidence that after 90 days after my 4th and 5th step, my sponsor's moving to a different state. My second sponsor, Sean, great guy. We just had different schedules. We couldn't get on the same page at the same time to work together. But the one thing that Sean left with me that has stuck with me, and I used it today several times. Some of you saw me on the phone with my daughter in the parking lot. Things work out exactly how they're supposed to. Not how Randy wants them, not how Daniel wants them, but how the God of your understanding wants them, your higher power. And I truly believe that. Because if Randy gets out of the way and lets go and quits trying to hold on to the steering wheel or the handlebars or the golf club, things work out a lot better if I get the hell out of the way. Let me give you a couple of examples of how that works. My daughter is a college golfer, playing Division I golf. She's a good player. She's not going to play on the LPGA Tour, but she's a good player. I have a 16-year-old son. He's a good player. I dabble at the game, probably more than I should be allowed. So back over the summer, my daughter is required to play 2 tournaments for the college to be considered to play for the fall. She gets into the one tournament now. Granted, she's off having the summer of her life. She's been in South Africa, and she's working at a summer camp, loving her best life. The second tournament, she gets waitlisted. She calls me crying, panic. What am I going to do? I'm not going to get to play in the fall. If I don't play the 2 tournaments over the summer, they're not going to let me qualify. They're not going to. I said, take a breath, relax. And I pull out the old AA wisdom. I said, honey, they're going to work out exactly how it's supposed to. This is going to work out. The next day she texts me, wait, I got off the wait list. I'm in. Funniest part about that is, come August, she gets getting ready to go back to school. The coach that had this requirement quit. Things worked out exactly how they're supposed to. Tonight, I knew this panic phone call was coming. I've never taken a phone call during an AA meeting, but I knew this phone call was coming. She had her final day of qualifying for the Golf Week tournament next week in South Carolina. And she's on the border. She's an older kid. These kids coming in today, they're young and they're good. And they breathe golf. She called, Dad, I can't go. I didn't play good. I'm not going to make the team. I said, hold on a minute. I can't understand you. Well, you told me it was a workout. It's not. I'm not going to make the team. I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be a storm. It's going to get rained out. There's some silver lining in this. I'm trying to think of the dad and how this is going to work out. And she's crying, I can't call Mom. She's going to be upset. I don't know what to do. I said, honey, this is going to work out. I said, who's going? Well, they haven't told us yet. Okay. But I didn't play good. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I said, well, why haven't they told you? She said, well, they're discussing some things. I said, okay, so maybe they're discussing that you're the oldest person on the team. You've got great leadership and you're good. Here's the God part. Okay, you're right. Not 30 seconds later, she calls back and says, oh, I'm in the top 5. I'm going. Don't worry about it. I played good enough to get in. So God doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And those are the little things about being sober today that happen in my life all the time if I'm smart enough and alert enough in my sobriety to see them. They happen. Now, I also believe that meeting makers make it. Not because you're sitting in here and you're just going to get sober. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work for this alcoholic. But what I mean by meeting makers make it is if you have the desire to stop drinking and you come to meetings, there's a real good chance that something is going to rub off on you and somebody is going to pay attention to you when you walk in here, and you're going to get the help if you have a desire. You've got to want it. If you want what we have, you got to do what we do. I got a guy I've been working with a little over a year, decided he hadn't had enough. Guy goes back out, calls me, said, I hadn't had a drink in 5 days. What do? I said, call me tomorrow. He's 0 for 2. It's not on me, it's on him. You got to want to not drink. Now, that's hard. That says easy and does hard. But if you have that desire and you keep coming, stay till the miracle happens. Now, I talked about these God shots. And I also believe in service work. So, don't ever go on a 12-step call by yourself. That's what all my sponsors told me. Don't ever do that. Okay, so I'm at the beach with my dad and my son, and we're going to what our family calls late lunch, early dinner. And we're going to this little restaurant on 2nd Street. We go wheeling in, and I pull up with my dad and my son. We go in, and I said, something doesn't look right. And there's this guy with a straw hat on, sitting on a railroad tie out in the parking lot. He's got a stick and a string on it, and he's in a mud puddle. He's fishing. I said, this guy needs some help. Let the old good AA come out and we'll get this guy straightened out and get him to a meeting over in Grislet Town tonight. I'll have him straightened out. I go out to him and I say, hey, buddy, you doing all right? Yeah. I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm fishing. I said, okay. I said, hey, can I buy you lunch? Sure. I go on in. My son's got eyes, giant eyes like, Dad, what are you doing? The guy sits down and I order a club soda. That's my drink of choice since I got sober. My son has a Sprite. My dad orders a half and half iced tea. And the guy sitting with us said, whiskey. Oh, man, this is not going the way I expected. The waitress brings it out, sits it down. We get to talking. He has another whiskey. So we finish up with lunch and everything. And my dad and son go out. And I said, man, I'd really like to help you. How can I help you? He said, no, I'm good, man. I said, were you really out there fishing in that pond, in that mud puddle? He said, I was. I said, did you catch any? He said, you damn right I did. You're the third one today. So don't go on 12-step calls by yourself. But I do believe in service work. Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm a chicken. I have not gone to jails, and I have not gone to prisons as required or as a volunteer. I hadn't stepped up to that yet. I got a friend that does it, and he says it's the greatest thing in the world. I said, good. I said, you want to be the treasurer? He said, no. We all have our talents. So I'll tell you right up front, I am a chicken to go do jail AA or prison AA. Maybe someday. But what I am good is I'm good at hauling drunks all over the city of High Point. I know where every Oxford house is in town, and we pick them up, we drive them around, we feed them, we help them find clothes, whatever we got to do. We got a great program in town called Caring Services. I think it's wonderful. A lot of people use it, and a lot of people need that sober living and recovery before they can get back on their feet. I was fortunate. I did an outpatient program that was recommended by a Christian alcoholic counselor. I sat down and I said, I don't have a drinking problem. I don't know why I'm here. She said, you're pissed. That's what your problem is. And I was an angry, angry person. And AA has given me more blessings than I could ever imagine in my life. And I want to share with you a story that is unfolding in front of my eyes today. It gives me goosebumps to think about this. Through a series of events my wife and I have been very blessed, and we were able to purchase a second home here in Moore County. And it's a very humbling experience. And had everything lined up, contract, everything ready to go. And that deal kind of fell through. And first thing was, my wife jumped out the window in panic, in tears. What are we going to do? We bought this house. We can't even live in it. It's terrible. I said, hang on, catch your breath. That's my new favorite line, catch your breath, because women I live with, they get talking and get out of control and can't understand them. I said, we got to pray about this. Things work out exactly how they're supposed to. So I called a high school friend of mine, and she's in the design business, and she came over and we looked at the house and we talked to her, and I was kind of in a panic because I'm sitting there with this house. I'm not a carpenter or a tradesman. I don't have that skill. And she gave me a recommendation. I needed an electrician pretty quick to fix some stuff. I called that electrician. My gas sitting right there. The guy came over, took care of what it needed to do, and got me on my way. Y'all probably know Mark V. He's not here tonight. He's got COVID in Jersey. I don't know which is worse, having COVID or being in Jersey, or having COVID in Jersey. But Mark and I are pretty good friends. I met Mark through Sam B. Some of y'all may know Sam. My name's Sam. I'm an alcoholic. He went through the colony. He came up to visit. Mark and I became friends. Called Mark. Needed a painter. Vint shows up. Needed a carpenter. John O shows up. You know, I got goosebumps thinking about it. Continually, men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous have shown up in my life when I least expected, when I got out of the way and let God take over. We were in a panic. We didn't know what to do. And things started happening. Not because I was driving the bus, but because I finally let back and go. I said, I cannot do this. I surrender. Just like it was when I decided it was time to quit drinking. And we'll see where this goes. But those are little God shots that, how in the heck could an entrepreneur, dumb little textile guy, show up in Moore County and run into a bunch of AAs that can do things that he can't do, and I need help? That's God working right there, folks. I don't have a fantastic shining light AA story that, you know, I got hit by a train and, you know, all that. But what I do know is that if I do this one day at a time, and I stay with it, and I keep working with the new drunk that comes in, because the guys I sponsor keep me sober. Let me tell you, if you ain't sponsoring somebody, go get you a bonehead. Sponsee. They will keep you sober because they're just like I was. They don't know what to do. They look at this blank page. That's all they know about AA. They know how to get drunk. We all were good at that. They keep it real. They keep my feet right on the asphalt where it needs to be. They call it crazy times, and they have all kind of stuff. And we know we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, we're not marriage counselors, we're not therapists. But if a guy has a medical problem, we get him to the doctor. If a guy has a marriage problem, we get him to somebody that can deal with that. If a guy has a financial problem, we find somebody. If he has a legal problem, there's a ton of lawyers out there. Yeah, you ever heard a bad salesman joke? No, but there's a lot of bad lawyer jokes out there. There's lawyers everywhere, and believe it or not, there's a lot of drunk lawyers out there that are willing to help folks just like us. There's help. We got to ask. You know, that was my biggest problem. I needed help. I didn't know what to do. When I asked for help, y'all showed up. Y'all were there that Thursday night when I stumbled in there and didn't know anything about what to do next. Y'all were right there. And you know what? Y'all loved me until I could love myself. And that was a pretty darn cool thing, because I hated Randy. You know what? And these guys out here that are helping me and doing all this, they hear this story. They may not want to do any more being around me, but I tell you what, I have been blessed so many times over and over by this great program that was free. I mean, where else can you go on a Thursday night, hear a stupid story, get a cup of coffee, and it costs $1? It's pretty darn good entertainment. And guess what? It's saving my life. Y'all being here tonight, saving my life. It really is. And if there's anybody out there that's new, stay. Find somebody, get some running buddies, get a sponsor, get in this book. I'll share with you another thing that was shared with me. This is my charter chip that was given to me on March the 8th, 2017. I don't know what kind of chip y'all have here to start. Maybe it's a white chip or whatever. This is that to thine own self be true, unity service recovery 24 hours. Has a serenity prayer on this side and has a smooth circle right in the middle. And what I found is if Randy can get in that smooth circle right there and I can stay right there, life is good. That's right in the middle of AA. Not going to AA, being part of AA. When I get outside that circle, it gets real bumpy. And the bumpier it gets, the further out from the center you go. Next thing you know, I'm thrown off. And that's how fast it happens. When I quit praying, quit reading something spiritual, quit going to a meeting, quit helping somebody else, and quit praying the day, I'm dead. I can promise you that. I'll be dead. There wasn't a next stop for me. There wasn't. And I tell you what, this has been the best 7 years of my life. My kids are happy and they're healthy. My wife is happy and she's healthy. I got a good job. I got a lot to look forward to. And it's all due to AA. I lost my mother back in December unexpectedly. And I never once ever thought about taking a drink during that whole time. And I had the chaotic brother in there. You know, the one that had watched a couple of house shows on TV and thought he could cure and fix all that. And I was able to be the mediator between the doctor and my father and my brother and all the goings on. And it was because I was sober. But I never once thought about taking a drink. But my mom shared one thing, and I'll leave this with you tonight. She told me, she said, Randy, always remember, it's hard to fall when you're on your knees in prayer. Guys, thanks for having me down here tonight.